All right, welcome to On the Record with OPD. Sorry we had a little technical difficulty. And of course, we know police work is 24/7, so we had a couple meetings to go to beforehand. But let me go right to our people that we have today. Deputy Chief Drennan Lindsay, and we have Captain Paul Figueroa.
Hi.
Chief, let me start with you. Mm-hmm. You're over the Bureau of Investigations.
Yes.
Exactly. What does that mean, and who is involved?
All right, so the Bureau of Investigations houses the Criminal Investigation Division, so we do all of the follow-up investigations for the city. It also houses an accredited crime lab, and recently we've added the Violent Crimes Operations Center, which is, a center where we bring in all of the intelligence. We have units that are, or individuals, I should say, that are, 24/7 looking at information, looking at crimes, trends, patterns, and they will go out into the field and conduct immediate follow-up. They also work hand in hand with our Criminal Investigation Division. And so, for instance, if we have a homicide that has occurred, homicide investigator has identified a suspect, has a Ramey warrant, they can go out immediately into the field and make that arrest or do whatever follow-up work is required to further the investigation in solving that homicide case. Additionally, that's housed under the what we call the VCOC, our Violent Crimes Operations Center. We have the intelligence unit, so that is where we have officers who all they do is look at intelligence, look at individuals that may be engaged in the criminal activity, and they produce reports, and they also work in conjunction or collaboration with some of the other units in the department. And so when we talk about intelligence-led policing, which is one of the department's strategies to help us focus on crime, focus on the individuals that are engaging in criminal conduct, it helps us to reduce the footprint in the city of Oakland. And then lastly, we do have the Property and Evidence Unit. That's a part of the Violent Crimes Operations Center. And so with that entity, we're working actually standing up our first ever gun e-trace unit. So all of these units that's housed under the Bureau of Investigations, they work cohesively together just to make sure that we're sharing information, we have real-time information, and that we have some real-time follow-up. So that is the Bureau of Investigations, aka BOI.
And before we go to the captain here, you said e-tracing. What does that mean? Some people might not understand what that means.
Oh, I'm sorry. So basically, when we recover a gun, obviously, well, hopefully there is a serial number attached to it, and we can do a search to find out where did the gun come from. Is it stolen? Is it legally possessed? Is there any crimes connected to it? And so the gun e-trace unit will do just that. And we can follow up on, just finding, the origins of the guns and making sure that if the gun has been involved in crime or, if it was possessed or sold illegally, we can follow up on that as well. So is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Great. And Captain Fig, where do you come in? How do you play in this whole Bureau of Investigations?
So I work for Chief Lindsay, and my role is to run the criminal investigation side of it. So all the investigators that respond to scenes and get the reports in the morning for crimes that have occurred, our investigators do that. And so we're about 120 investigators total. We hope to increase that at some point soon. But we do everything from, we have a special victim sections with handles missing persons, sex trafficking cases, sexual assault cases. We also have our youth programs out of that section that we run that we're very proud of, and the family violence unit is there. And it's a lot of cases. There's thousands of cases a year that come through there, just their area alone. I also have the homicide division. We've investigated 52 deaths this year. A lot of my energy and time is spent obviously in working on the homicide cases, making sure my staff have the adequate resources necessary to do that job. We also hired a victim liaison this year, and only about a month ago actually.
A victim liaison
for homicide cases. Some other cases in other areas if they're high profile, but generally we want to be better at really connecting with the families of the victims of homicide. I think cases that go unsolved or cases that are even solved where there's new information. A lot of times families just want to be contacted and get an update. And when an investigator can get up to 10 cases a year per investigator, sometimes 15, you don't have the time, unfortunately, because you're working hot leads, you're writing search warrants, you're doing so much in terms of the investigative side to bring justice in that case and identify who did it. But having a victim liaison with us, she will have the time to make those phone calls, to connect with the family, to get them updates, to be the point of contact. Because if we go out to a scene of a homicide, just last night, right, the CHP is the lead on it, but we played a big role and are playing a big role in the investigation of the party bus that was shot. We could be out of play for 2 days, right, to 3 days even, depending on what's happening and depending on the events. And so bringing this victim specialist on board will have the time, won't be responding to those scenes unless they won't be responding to the scenes. They'll have time to do that follow-up. So I know I spent a lot of time on that,
No.
but that's a big deal for us. We've been trying to do this for a while, and it took the chief about a year to get that position hired. So we're very excited about that, and really trying to build out our victim services side in the homicide side.
Chief, the captain mentioned there's 52 homicides that happened in the city of Oakland this year. That's a large number, much more than he had this time last year. Right. How difficult and how hard is it on, well, we know how hard it is on the community, but it also trickles down to your officers who are going to investigation after investigation. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, anytime we have any type of tragedy in the city of Oakland, particularly, the loss of life, it affects us all, and I don't think that people really understand that, the individuals, the officers, the police evidence technicians, anyone who's responding to that scene is going to be affected by the loss of life. And, when you have the investigator respond, they want to solve the case. And, we have them, I've seen them, I was the former homicide commander. I know that, their heart is in the right place and they want to be able to bring some type of justice and peace to the family members. They really do, and they really work. Sometimes I would have to tell certain investigators to go home because they have been here 18, 19 hours working straight, just, following up on the lead, trying to bring some type of resolve to the case. And so it's challenging. And so with the uptick in violence in our city, it's not only affecting the community, it affects us too. And we have to make sure that we're, checking on the health and well-being of our officers, because they have to be resilient and strong enough to be able to respond to these scenes,
And Captain, can you walk us through, so a crime happens in Oakland, the responding officers, the patrol officers go out there and take the situation. Where does your team, where do the people come in for the investigating part?
Thank you. So in most crime reports that are filed with us, the officers will respond to the scene, they'll do the preliminary investigation, they'll write their police report. Our investigators will get it in the morning when they come to work. Most of our investigators work from 8 a.m. to 5-ish, and then we do have a set of investigators that works the swing shift hours, so from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. or even midnight in some cases. And so that's most of the time we get the report that's been completed by the officer in the field, and they do the preliminary investigation. In certain circumstances, we do what's called a call-out, where investigators will respond anytime, day or night, from home, doesn't matter, for significant crimes. So an at-risk missing person is a good example of someone where we might suspect some foul play is afoot in why they're missing. So our missing person investigators would come out for that. Obviously, when there's a homicide, that's an automatic call-out. Where there's
Explain what a call-out is.
I'm sorry, call-out is where the officers in the field notify their supervisor that this meets our call-out standards, and they'll call the investigators up from home. And the investigators will come in and take that investigation over and work those leads, those urgent leads, to make sure they can try to bring that case to a resolution and get as much evidence as they can. In the case of homicides, we typically don't have a suspect in custody, usually right away. So it's really important in the first couple days to make sure we've locked down as much information as possible, physical evidence. Cases can be very nuanced, and you have to have very specialized knowledge about how to collect DNA, where it might be in a scene. Patrol officers do a good job. Unfortunately, we do get a fair amount of experience responding to those calls initially, but particularly in homicide investigations, and the chief ran our homicide division for a long time, they take a very specific set of knowledge to know, okay, I can recover DNA from this kind of surface, I can't from this kind of surface, and so they'll help focus that investigation and bring that expertise to the table.
And both of you have been here for more than 2 decades, am I correct?
Yes.
All right, so
yes,
you both know
thank you
you've
for
seen
that.
a big change. Hey, that's what I'm here for. Big change in how things are.
3 decades.
3 decades.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I know you are from Oakland,
Yes.
born and raised, and I know you're not too far up from Richmond, but you've
Yes.
basically spent your entire life here in Oakland.
Yes.
First, let me back up. Let me ask you one question I was going to ask beforehand before we go into that. But I know you're also working very hard, Chief, with the Missing Persons Unit and to bolster that. Talk to us about that, because I know that's something very important to you.
Yes. Right now, we are not at the staffing levels that we like to be, and I'm hoping that there will be some increases in our budget, and so that we can get more, investigators trained and assigned to the Missing Persons Unit. I would like to expand it. I would like to expand, our reach in terms of investigative capacity as it relates to missing persons. But we are, we do have support staff that we assign there, our professional staff, and so I'm looking at bringing along another professional staff member to help us maintain our website. Because we would like to be able to have, information posted about people's loved ones that may be missing on that website, so people can be able to go and find and, provide tips, or know that people's, loved ones are, we're making an effort to really put a spotlight on, certain cases so that we can bring them to a close. So it's definitely a hot topic, a hot priority for us to just be able to expand that unit, but and I will take what I can get at this point. So professional staff, will find a way to bring them in and help with some of the workload that we have there.
All right. And so back to where I was going, and you both are from the Bay Area.
Yep.
Oakland, you live in Oakland. You still live in Oakland?
Yes.
Well, so when crime happens, it's a personal issue. It's not just your work. This is something that happens to you at your house. Explain to that, because a lot of people just think, hey, the officers come here, do their work, and then they leave. But for you, it's here 24/7.
Yes, I mean, my family lives here. I teach part-time in this community at Merritt College, so my students live here. And so just as anyone else, I worry about my loved ones, when they drive through the streets of Oakland, my daughters, my mother, so it's very personal to me. And so being able to be a part of this community and to be able to try to find solutions to solve crime or to make this community safer is very near and dear to my heart. So definitely.
Same question, Captain.
Yeah. So I'm coming up on my 3rd decade here. So in August of this year, and OPD's really been all I've known, right, since getting out of high school, essentially. And so even before becoming the OPD, I was touched by crime, in significant ways. And a really good friend of ours, just a few houses down, his dad was killed. I think I was 10 at the time. And just seeing the impact, the long-term impact, and we're still great friends with the family, see them regularly, but the impact of that death is felt to this day, right? And so that feeling is still there for me. It's never left. And as an Oaklander, I can't tell you how many times I've seen it since then. And especially responding. I was a young officer. One of my first homicides I took that I responded to was another dear family friend that I went to school with, and we all kind of grew up together. And their little brother was a homicide victim. And those things I never forget. And we understand the impact of that. I still remember what the coffee stains on the ground looked like when I was 10, when that homicide happened, and I could probably draw it out exactly to this day. And
so it has a lasting effect.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's not lost on us. I mean, just a couple weeks back, we were meeting with a family member of a homicide victim, and just the raw emotion. I think oftentimes TV doesn't show that side of it, right? I mean, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, just because it's so visceral, the feeling, right? It just comes, it's just right there. It's ever present. And every time there's a homicide, we feel that same like sense of just devastation for the family. And the circumstances differ from case to case, but the sense of devastation is not, right? It's just, it's a you know, it's hard to put into words. I mean, and our investigators are dealing with this on a daily basis, and the chief has been very involved in our wellness efforts over the years, but that's omnipresent for us. You know, is this, you know, and we've had to take homicide investigators, robbery investigators, they're so committed to their job at times, they'll just work a case for 3 days straight, and you have to tell them, you need to stop, you haven't gone home in a few days, we're going to have you driven home, I don't want you driving, and you need to get some rest. And that's the level of commitment that many of these investigators have. And you know, living in the city, seeing Sideshow on a regular basis, you know, me myself having to figure out, you know, kind of monitoring traffic channels to see, you know, where to, you know, just a few weeks ago I couldn't traverse an area and had to kind of come up with an alternate route. And so it's very much an issue for us on a daily basis. And, you know, being here in Oakland is, you know, it's a big commitment for us, and I wouldn't have it any other way. It's been a phenomenal opportunity for me.
And I just want to add to that, you know, it's been times where, because I was a middle school teacher before I became a police officer, and I have seen some of my former students, you know, unfortunately be killed and have had to be a part of that investigation, which is haunting, because you remember the kid as the little 12-year-old sitting in the front row, maybe being obnoxious or maybe being super smart, but you still remember this sweet, you know, innocent kid, and now, you know, they fallen victim to, you know, a homicide. And then even recently, I've had students who have been victims of shootings in this city, you know, wrong place at the wrong time, and having to navigate, you know, being able to help them pass the course, or, you know, give them, you know, special assignments so that they can continue on their journey of education while still, you know, trying to balance them being a victim of a crime is just absolutely a lot to deal with, to address, and just, you know, just trying to help keep them uplifted, but at the same time, you know, you want to, you know, care for their needs. So it's just, it can be quite taxing, just living and working in this city, and, you know, trying to give all that you can just for the betterment of people.
And I know the captain said you were the commander of a homicide too, so this is kind of your second round, but this time you're over the entire section. But it's just not the homicides. I know that's something we can talk about for a long period of time, but you also have your crime lab, who works hand in hand basically with that situation. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so the crime lab, which is accredited, is very phenomenal. I mean, you know, every time there's a shooting and we recover evidence, they process it. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of evidence to process. So, you know, processing guns, processing the casings, you know, that's left behind from the gun, processing DNA, you know, evaluating drugs, you know, so testing to make sure is this truly a drug or not. So they have a huge responsibility too. They play a role in our efforts to solve crime. So it's wonderful, you know, that if there's a burglary that occurs and, you know, fingerprints are lifted and we get a report back where they have identified the prints of the person who committed the burglary. And so you do have that portion of the investigation where they play a huge role in how we're able to solve crime. So love the crime lab, love to see them grow too.
And we talk about accredited. Just explain really quickly what accreditation means for some people who might not understand what that means.
So that just means that they are certified and their work is validated and vetted, and they can testify in court that the work that we've done in this lab in our city is actually, you know, viable to stand through testimony in court. So we don't have to go to another lab. We have one here in our own city, our own backyard.
How effective is that? Is that very helpful?
Oh, absolutely. You know, because some agencies are not as, you know, fortunate as we are to have an accredited lab. They have to send their work out to another entity, and that obviously can create some time, a period of waiting, because you don't have that luxury embedded within your organization. So for us, if we need to rush a request, so if we have maybe a DNA request, or a request for what we call IBIS, so that's when someone discharges a firearm, they leave the casing behind. That's like a footprint. And so being able to have that work being done, and giving that information to the investigator is priceless. And sometimes we can get a turnaround within a day. So that's a very helpful tool for us to be able to solve crimes.
Yeah, I know there's a lot, so I don't want to leave anyone out, but I know we might. Special victims is also under you. Explain that, or under both of you.
Yeah.
You being the captain, you being the deputy chief. But what does that mean?
They deal with victims of sexual assault. They deal with human trafficking investigations. They deal with child pornography cases. They deal with domestic violence. I mean, it's such a wide-ranging spectrum that they deal with, and that can take a toll. And we in law enforcement, we always know it takes a special kind of person to work in SVS, because you're dealing with very young victims. You're dealing with, and it very much has a unique set of stressors to it, and the people that work there are absolutely committed, and they become true experts at investigating those types of events and incidents. And they get thousands of cases a year to look at. We are fortunate in Oakland, in a partnership with the district attorney's office and some other agencies. We have a family violence justice center, which is not here at the police department. It's at an alternate location on 27th Street.
Yep.
Yep. And I'm so used to going there, I don't remember their address anymore. That's why I look. I know exactly where to go, but. No, but there's victim specialists that work right there at the office with them, and it's an opportunity to bring the district attorney together with the investigators, plus a lot of wraparound services that are available in one location. And so, it's a lot of specialty, a lot of specialized things that happen there, and the youth services programs are great. So Police Activities League are. OK program, which is where officers provide mentorship to very young people in our community, check on their grades, drive them to class if they can't get there. Like, it's a phenomenal opportunity for a police officer to have, wear a polo shirt and have an amazing positive contact with kids, and really be a positive influence to their lives, and to be a resource for the kids as they're growing up. And so that's a pretty phenomenal. If I had to restart my career, that's probably where I would go and ask to be put. And that OK program is pretty amazing.
And you also
as
have
well as
crime analysis and robberies, and so any kind of investigation has to happen underneath you guys.
Yep.
Yes.
Right. And I want to make sure I didn't forget anyone. So we have crime analysis,
robbery,
which is basically
felony assault unit. We have our property crimes, which houses our stolen vehicles, our theft, grand theft. Let's see what else.
Task forces that we're members of.
We have our task force members who work collaboratively with other outside agencies. Credit card fraud. So those types of cases. Yeah, everything.
So really quickly, you mentioned the VCOC earlier.
Yes.
So that's something new.
Yes.
And that's something that's underneath your leadership.
Yes.
Talk to me about that. I know that's something that that the department is using to go after the violent crimes.
Right. They've been up about 2 months now. They've been doing a phenomenal job. So, really when we are trying to solve crimes, sometimes we can be we have these compartments, right? So you have everybody's kind of housed in their own respective areas, and they have their own respective, goals and expectations. And so what we've done is we've taken the whole citywide approach and looking at priorities. And so basically no boundaries, not an area 1, not an area 5. If it's wherever the crime happens and wherever there's the need for the most immediate follow-up, that's where they go. And so we've been actually pretty successful. We've arrested probably about 19 homicide suspects over the past 2 months. And so, it's too early to tell, when you look at measurements, but the momentum is very great, in addition to other, individuals that's wanted for, felony offenses. And so the intel, the communication, that energy, right? That energy level is fantastic. Just being able to work with the Criminal Investigation Division, work with the operations commanders and bureau chiefs. I mean, it's just been really phenomenal. So we're going to continue to, water that new, center and just continue to see it grow and flourish, and hopefully, try to slow down some of the violent crimes that you're seeing happening in the community. So that's the goal of it.
I have one last question to both of you, then I'll let you guys round it out. Community input, community impact. Do we need the community? Do you need the community? And what can the community do to help?
Yes, we need the community. We need to be force multipliers, because we can't do it by ourselves. We're not able to be on every single block, at every single corner, at every single time to see everything. So we need eyes and ears from the community. We need your help. We have a lot of unsolved cases. We need your help. We can't do it alone. We cannot do it alone. So I really want to emphasize our openness to have community work alongside of us, work collaboratively with us, reach out to us, suggest things, volunteer. Like, we really need the help. Like, in order for us to really, slow down the wave of crime and violence in this city, it's going to take us all. We need to make a person feel very uncomfortable committing a crime on our streets, because they know that we're all force multipliers in this effort to really reduce crime and get justice for people. So people should feel uncomfortable. Like, I know someone's going to say something and do something about your behavior. So we really need the support of the community.
So when you say see something, say something, you really mean say something.
Please
right.
Say something.
Yeah.
Please.
You have anything to add to that, Captain?
No, I mean, I can look at, I can just think back to the cases solved this week were done because the community gave us input and feedback, and video, if they've got those different video systems.
Yes.
I won't name brands, but no, I mean, we can't do our jobs without the community. At the initial point that they make the crime report to us, not everybody reports crime to us. We encourage them to. We want to know about it, and even if a person feels like, I personally have been a victim and have had to make crime reports before. So even if you feel like nothing will be done, right? Or you're, I don't have the time to do this, or they're not gonna want to look into this, so I'm just not going to make a report. It's still, your reporting it to us may help us prevent other things from happening to other people in the future, or even reoccurring to yourself again. And it's really important to just make those reports. Many you can do online now, but if we're not armed with information and very specifics about what's going on in the community, we can't make strategic decisions about how to deploy our staff and how to deploy our investigative staff, so we can try to get ahead of things. And for example, auto burglars will burglarize 15 cars in a few hours, right? And if we're only getting a couple reports, we're not able to put those pieces together to try to solve those cases, or to know where to say, wow, we've actually had 15 here. We need to spend some time focused over here to make sure that we're trying to interdict that as much as possible. And that's just the reporting side. I can go on and on and on, but we need people, if they see something, to say something. We need video footage if they have it. And we have special trained police service technicians. All they do is collect video now. It's so prevalent. And we've solved so many cases because of that. It's just invaluable. So on every level, at every front, we need the community's help, from the start to the finish, and then follow up with victims as well. Yes.
Stick with you before we go back to the deputy chief. Any final words?
No, thank you for doing this today. I think it's important for people to hear that we're working hard on their behalf, and that we just need continued help from the community to continue to try to solve a lot of these crimes.
Chief?
I think he said very well put. I hope that this has been informative, so that the community is aware of how we're made up, and maybe some things that they can do to kind of help us, help them better. And so I'm just happy to help. I'm happy to serve, and just I'm very sincere about those partnerships and collaboration. Like we really need that type of support. So.
And they can always apply, OPD jobs.
My goodness, please apply to the Oakland Police Department. Be a part of the change that you want to see. So I mean, and I mean that sincerely. I know that is kind of cheesy, but I sincerely mean that. We would love to welcome people to come be a part of this team. We need you. Come work with us.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. So join us back here on June 9th when we'll have Chief Armstrong talking again about topics. I'll let you know a little bit later what it'll be, but we appreciate you spending time with us. Thank you, guys.